Good morning, and welcome to this glorious, glorious, sunny first Sunday of May. Isn't it beautiful outside? I also welcome all of you to Unity of Syracuse and our live streaming. We are so glad that we're all together here. It may be virtually, but we're all together here. My name is Patsy Scala, and it is my honor to be conducting this service today. As a speaker, this is the first time I've spoken to an empty church. So there are no friendly faces looking back at me, but I know that there are friendly faces out there. And I feel your love. I feel the connection. And I invite all of you to feel that heartfelt connection as well. Because as that beautiful song from Karen Drucker said, you are love. I am love. You see the light. I see the light. We are the light. So in this connection that transcends time and space, we're going to begin with a reading of the daily word. The daily word for today is world peace. I contribute to peace in the world. When I learn of conflict in my community or in the world, my response may be frustration, sadness, or anger. If I have these feelings, I remember that I am more than merely human. I am a living expression of God, heir to all that God is. I use my divine faculties of wisdom, understanding, and love to create the abiding peace that is my birthright. Centered in divine peace, I realize that every person is as much an expression of God as I am. As differences dissolve in a way that transcends human understanding, I come to know oneness with all the world's people. I let this realization shape my response to every person and every situation. In an awareness of my oneness with all people, my thoughts, words, and actions contribute to peace in the world. And from John 17, verse 22, the glory that you have given me, I have given them, so that they may be one, as we are one. And I thought about this. How we contribute to world peace, because we are one. And if there is peace in any heart, there is peace in the world. It may not show. The glory that you have given me, it may not be in the news. So that they may be them, as we are one. And I thought about this. Now, being creatures of habit, most of us who regularly attend our Sunday services sit in pretty much the same seats. So I'm looking around and I'm imagining, using my power of imagination, to see all of you out there smiling and looking joyous on this beautiful sunny Sunday. Because I know that you're sending love from your heart, and I'm sending love to you from my heart, and we are connected not only virtually, but we are one. We are one in spirit. So let's just take one moment, and I imagine you to picture the people who usually sit in front of you or beside you. Picture what the platform looks like. Picture the beautiful rafters of the church, this magnificent building. Picture the stained glass windows. Imagine that you're here, because in a very real way, you are here. And I invite you to join me in our statement of being. God is all, both visible and invisible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am an individualized expression of God. I am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. Now, we have some announcements. We're starting something new today. The board has decided on 2 new things. The first one, not starting today, will be a virtual town hall meeting. Please watch your Constant Contact about when the town hall meeting will be. And if you don't get a copy of Constant Contact, please let us know. The second new thing that the board is starting is a coffee hour right after this service on Zoom. Natalie Dart is hosting it, and it will take place on Zoom, and we can all meet together. I probably will meet from my car as I drive home, but that's beside the point. We can all meet together and just talk about how we are and share a cup of coffee from your own home or whatever it is, a cup of tea. The link to get to that Zoom is in your Constant Contact, but it is also supposedly posted on the chat feature of this live streaming. Anyway, our Sunday services for May and part of June are going to be based on this book, The Eye of the Storm, by Unity Minister Gary Simmons. The weekly discussion groups will also focus on this. If you need a book, contact Sibby Morrow, either at the church office or at 315-492-0330. That's the church office number. If you're having technical difficulties connecting with any of the Zoom discussion groups, let us know via email or by calling this number. Okay, question for you. How many of you have noticed our new Facebook posts that started going up this week? We're going to have a Facebook post based on the daily word every day except Sunday, every week until we reunite, and maybe beyond that. So check them out. They're pretty nice. Okay, this is the first Sunday of May, as I mentioned. So, typically, we would have the Youth and Family Ministry come up and read the powers of the month, the color of the month. So I'm going to pretend to be part of the Youth and Family Ministry, and I'm going to read them because they aren't here. The power of the month is power, power itself, our inner power. The color is purple. In honor of this, I have a purple notebook. The disciple is Philip. The location is the roof of the tongue, which tells you that your word, the word you speak, has power. So at this point, I would like to welcome today's guests and let anyone who is here, well, there's not anyone right here, but anyone who is here for the first time, what I meant to say is not a regular attendee at these live streamings. Anyone who is here for the first time, please let us know via phone or email who you are, and please join us in the coffee hour. Unity is a positive, practical approach to Christianity. We are culturally Christian and spiritually unlimited. We honor the many paths to God. We live by 5 basic principles, and I'm going to read them. The first one, God is the source and creator of all. God is good and present everywhere. The second one, we are spiritual beings created in God's image. The third one, we create our life experiences through our way of thinking. Fourth, there is power in affirmative prayer. And 5, we have to live these principles every day of our lives. We live these 5 principles. So I asked if there was anyone who had experienced one of these 5 principles or more in their time this week. And I got a couple of responses, and I'm not going to read them, I'm just going to tell you what they were. Mina Bradley gave a beautiful, beautiful service last Sunday. And she said that she got so much uplifting praise that she allowed, using the first principle, and the second principle, that she is one with the divine being, and that our thoughts and actions, this is the third principle, influence our lives. She allowed these beautiful thoughts and beautiful communications to her to lift her up and carry her through a glorious week. Instead of just saying, well, they just said that, she allowed and believe me, that it was a magnificent service, and she allowed this praise to lift her up, to lift her higher. From Barbara Kolarz, she lost a very important piece of jewelry from her grandmother, searched her house for it, found it nowhere. She was bereft. She was depressed, she was sad, and decided to turn to principle 4, affirmative prayer. So she prayed, affirming that the right and perfect outcome would take place. She let it go, walked into her kitchen, and there it was on her kitchen floor. Affirmative prayer works. Affirmative prayer does indeed work, and I'm going to pray over the prayers that are in the prayer box, but since you have not been around in over a month to put your prayer in the prayer box, please hold your prayer in your heart. And if you need a prayer at a time when your prayer chaplain is not available or calling you, call Silent Unity at 1-800-NOW-PRAY. That's 1-800-NOW-PRAY. I affirm that every prayer in this box, that every prayer in the heart of every person who is watching this live streaming, that the prayer in the hearts of every person on this planet are answered in the right and perfect way, and that we each, through affirmative prayer, receive exactly the blessings that we need. I know this to be true. I affirm it to be true. And I say thank you, God. Amen. I also want to talk for a minute about our mission statement And then I'm going to go into the service for today, the lesson for today. Our mission is this: Unity of Syracuse inspires, awakens, and transforms lives through unlimited love, prayer, and service. We transform lives. Now, for the month of May, as I said, we're going to be offering lessons from this book, Eye of the Storm by Gary Simmons. It's an important book for any time, but I think it's an especially important book to delve into at this point in time. Because not only do we have our individual storms, but we are also experiencing a universal storm, a global storm. And we are living in unprecedented circumstances right now. So my talk for today is going to try to wrap a whole bunch of things up together. It's going to talk about the book itself. I'm going to talk about the eye. I'm going to talk about the storm, what it is, how it affects us. I'm going to talk about the major teachings in the first chapter of this book, because we're dividing the book into 6 different sections, so I'll be talking about the introduction and the part of the first chapter and part of the second chapter. And I'm going to tie this together with the global storm that we're all going through, the pandemic. So I'm going to start with a quote from Mark, verse 35, chapter 41. Actually, I'm doing it as a story rather than a quote. Jesus and the apostles were out, decided to go out in the boat, perhaps to do some fishing, perhaps to go to somewhere, but they were in their boat, and a storm came up, and it was a terrible storm. It was one of those dreadful storms. I don't know if you've experienced a storm on the water, but the water swirls around, and it was an incredible storm. And the apostles were terrified. They were scared. And Jesus stood, raised his hand, and said to the waters, "Peace, be still." And the storm was over. Jesus was the I am, the representative of the I in the storm, on that boat. In the storms in our lives, we take the same role. We become that I am within the storms that surround us in life. So first, what is the I and what is the storm? The I, and it is the letter I, it is not E-Y-E, it's the letter I. The I of the storm is your wholeness, your essential truth, the part of you that is aligned with all that is. It's defined by our statement of being, which I read earlier. I am an individualized expression of God. That is your I. And God is defined again as all. both visible and invisible, one presence, one mind, one power. We are part of this. That is the I in every storm. We're part of the allness of God. We're made in the image and likeness of God. We have a spark of God in us. This is our inner wholeness. It's the part of us that can keep us calm in every storm. Just like the EYE of a hurricane, the I in any storm is that place within the storm that is perfectly calm, at perfect peace. It's that part of us that is the neutral observer. It's that part of us that gets us through the most difficult of storms. And what are the storms? A storm is anything that creates or could create a conflict within us. And this book deals very beautifully with conflict. That's one of the themes of the book. A storm could be as simple as a thought. Have you ever woken up at like 3 a.m. and you had this thought that suddenly totally woke you up and started you worrying? That's a storm. A storm can be something someone said to us that we didn't take in the right way or wasn't said in the right way. A storm could be something going on in our lives that is painful or tragic. And a storm could be something catastrophic and global. Right now, we're living in the midst of a lot of things that could create conflict for us if we let them. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Our schools are closed. Our children are restless. Our parents are probably exhausted from teaching the children. Businesses are closed. The economy is shrinking. Our daily personal storms we have as well. And in the midst of them, we're living in this never-before experienced twilight zone. This pandemic that forces us to be isolated, to distance from the people and the organizations we love. I walked into the church today, this church that I love, and because of the pandemic, I walked in a mask and gloves and sterilized everything. Did I have to? Probably not, but just in case. My friend who's operating the video and the audio has a mask. We're living in twilight zone right now. The pandemic is serious, and we need to take it seriously. What we don't need out of this pandemic is for it to control what we are inside. And right now, I want to give you a big caveat. What I'm talking about today is how we calm our reaction to the storms around us, What I'm talking about is not a cure or a preventive for this pandemic or for any storm. It's simply a way to get through whatever is with grace and love and peace. So I don't want anybody walking away from hearing what I'm saying, thinking that I said, if you remain calm, you won't catch COVID-19. That is not what I'm saying. We still have to follow the medical practices of social distancing, of isolating, of washing our hands, of sterilizing, of not touching our face. And have any of you noticed that the minute you say, don't touch your face, your nose starts itching? It's happening to me right now. But we have to go through this. What I'm going to talk about is how you calm your reaction to the storm. Well, we actually start with the power of this month, May, our inner power. Charles Fillmore defined power as the ability to master and have dominion and control. What does that mean? What do we have to have dominion and control over? Especially since we can't control the outer storms that take place in our life. We can help the spread of COVID-19 through what we do, but we can't control it. We can use our inner power to control the fear and the ego fear that takes place, that keeps us from living in the truth of who we are. That's what we have control over, our reaction and our fear. And we use this inner power to bring forth that control. We all have different life purposes. But Gary Simmons in this book says, our life purpose must be enacted in whatever circumstance we find ourselves. Whatever circumstances. Therefore, we need to keep fulfilling our life purpose. No matter what conflict we have from our thoughts or our family or the pandemic or anything else like that, this is the path of the spiritual warrior. This is the path that the I controls in your life, that I am within you. Using this calm inner I that is within us, we understand that, as Simmons says, quote from the book, the future is just probabilities in a sea of infinite possibilities. Well, what does this mean? The future is probabilities in a sea of possibilities? What is he talking about? I'll give you a couple of examples. It was probable that I would make it to church today. But it was possible that something might happen and I wouldn't. It's probable that you will go to the grocery store if you go wearing your mask and keeping 10 feet away from others, that you'll be able to avoid contact with others. But it's possible that you might run into your best friend who is not social distancing, who runs up and hugs you. There are probabilities in life floating among a multitude of infinite possibilities. And we have to live so that we are attuned to what is the best and highest probability. In this storm we're currently going through, we may be tempted to ask that age-old question: why is this happening to me? Right? I would ask you to raise your hands how many of you have asked, why is this happening to me? But I couldn't see your hands if you raised them so raise them anyway, just, I've asked this, why is this happening to me? Gary Simmons guides us differently. He says what we should be asking is, how is this happening for me? What can I learn from this? Last week in Mina's wonderful service, she ended by saying, we are the ones, and now is the time. Now is the time for us to not to go through this situation, but to grow through this situation together. Gary Simmons points out in the book that everything that is for you or against you has its roots within you. Okay. All right. This is complicated because I don't have a pandemic within me. I don't have a lot of storms within me. So what is he talking about? I want to look at this from the premise of the two major points that he brings out in the first chapter and the second chapter. But first of all, I want to point out that the fact that he says that this isn't happening to us, it's happening within us, doesn't mean we created any storm. It means we create how we react to life's storms. So there are storms happening for us now. I don't know what your individual storms are, but I do know what our current shared storm is. So anyway, back to the two principles that Gary Simmons talks about. First of all, nothing is against you. Nothing, nothing, nothing in this outer world is against you. Ray Stoffel talked about this in a service about a month ago. I'm going to go further and say that nothing that happens in the outside world is really about you either. What goes on outside of you is not about what's inside of you. All that's really happening is what is happening within you as your reaction to what is going on outside of you. Does that make sense? I think it does. Simmons tells us that there is no force in the universe which opposes the life each of us is meant to live. If we live in our deepest truth, nothing outside of us can change anything that is within us. And what is within us is that divine connection to God. What is within us is the eye that calms the storm. It's that peaceful place that no outer storm can touch. It is our Christ consciousness. It is our I am. Nothing is against you. It is all for you to use for your greater good. Now, I realize that as we isolate, as we live through circumstances we've never seen before, ever, it's hard to imagine what greater good is coming out of this. But if we know that this pandemic and our other personal storms have nothing to do with us, we need to think about our reaction. What is this situation doing for you right now? Is it helping you maybe to have more time, to do what your soul longs to do? Is it helping you use your talents in service to others? Is it showing you to stay away from the multiplicity of everyday trivia that bombards us all the time? Is it doing that for you? Or is it just doing for you a simple little thing, like what it does for me? I have time during the daytime now, as I'm isolating at home, to take a little red laser thingy. It looks like a battery. And if I press on it, it creates a red dot on the floor. And I play with this red dot and my cat for quite a long time until my cat gets bored with it. And I laugh. And I laugh at the funny antics of my cat. This is something I would never think to do if I didn't have time in isolation to do it. And it's something that brings me great joy. Or, on a more serious note, does isolation give you an opportunity to deepen your spirituality? To spend more time in prayer, in meditation, in journal writing? Does it? And if it doesn't, what in your reaction is keeping that from happening? Because it is your reaction that's keeping any good that you don't feel from coming to you. It's not the storm itself. It's your reaction to the storm. I'm going to read you a beautiful quote from a woman named Kitty O'Meara, who speaks eloquently about what this pandemic storm is doing for us. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently. And the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. I don't know what these circumstances are doing for you, because we each have different experiences of what these circumstances bring, of what any storm brings. We each experience it differently. But I guarantee that within all of this, there is some good for us. The second principle that Simmons brings out in this book is that our experiences are not personal. They only become personal when we think the experience is about us. Why did this happen to me? Well, it didn't. It happened. How am I reacting to it? That's on me. The experience isn't. No storm is really about us. It's around us. What we experience is within us. Einstein once said that only those who can see the invisible can do the impossible. And Simmons quotes him in the book as saying this. I'm going to repeat that. Only those who can see the invisible can do the impossible. Let's take a deeper look at that. The invisible Einstein is speaking about is that inner knowing, that inner eye, the eye of the storm. The eye that can calm any storm. And the impossible is what we do as we travel through storms. What we do from this perspective of the invisible eye. Einstein is not the only well-known metaphysician, saint, although I don't know if Einstein was a saint, but anyway, who talked about the invisible and the impossible. St. Francis of Assisi said, first do what's necessary. We get through this collective storm. We wash our hands, we isolate, we socially distance ourselves from one another. We get through it. We do what's necessary. Then do what's possible. We examine what's within us to find out, what are the possibilities here for me? How can I grow through this? And soon we'll be doing the impossible, which is writing out every storm in life. I invite you to join one of the discussion groups this week and talk about these theories, these ideas, and how they have affected your reactions. And I invite you to go often to this inner eye. Visit it. Live from it. And we get to it through meditation. So at this point, I invite you to close your eyes if you can. and to take a deep, healing breath. Feel the breath move through your body, filling every cell and tissue of your body. Just breathe and feel the peace this brings. Now, imagine that your breath is a glowing white light, a light that radiates out from you, extends outward, touching everything that surrounds you. Know that this light is the light of spirit. Feel the power this gives you. Feel the peace that surrounds you. As you fill the space around you with this light, this glowing white light, know that this light comes from spirit and that it comes from deep within you. Know also that this light can conquer any storm you encounter. Affirming that with God all things are possible. Affirming that what we hold in our minds and hearts is reflected in our outer lives. We hold grace, love, light in our hearts as our eye, this eye that guides us through every storm. Take this time in silence to feel the presence of this sacred eye within you. I invite you to begin slowly to wiggle your fingers and toes and to bring your attention back to whatever room you're sitting in. To take a deep breath and to know that the eye within you will guide you through every storm. And so it is. Namaste. So now is the time in our service when we would receive tithes, gifts, love offerings. We invite you to give through our donate button on our website or to mail a check to Unity of Syracuse, 300 West Seneca Turnpike, Syracuse, New York, 13207. I'm going to repeat that. Unity of Syracuse, 300 West Seneca Turnpike, Syracuse, New York, 13207. Or you may want to sign up for electronic giving, which I've done, so that you automatically are giving. We count on your donations to support our operating costs. So let's rub our hands together. Let's rub our hands together and affirm our blessing, divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. You are my source. And now we want to bless our children, and I also want to acknowledge that there is a Zoom meeting of our youth and family ministry every Sunday at 10 o'clock. If you have a child that's been connected with the youth and family ministry, or if you are not a member of the church and you're new to the live streaming and you would like your children to take place in this, it's wonderful. So please know that if you notify the church, we will give you all the information to get yourself onto Zoom for the children's service. So let's bless our children. We bless our children wherever they are. We see them surrounded by love and light throughout the week. We have a thriving and edifying youth and family ministry. And finally, our benediction through our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love. The power of God protects us. We are the power. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. So we're moving out of this spiritual time together. And I embrace all of you. I love you. I give you a virtual hug. I know that we are connected through spirit and in spirit. So be safe. Enjoy each moment. React to whatever happens from your heart and your inner knowing. And enjoy this beautiful song by Karen Drucker.